Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. We thought we had great news in the case of the Brown University shooting, where 2 students were killed and 9 wounded, because we were told that a person of interest had been apprehended, taken into custody by the FBI and the Providence police. So we all breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief knowing that the apparent shooter was in custody. But we were told late last night, about 11 p.m., that the person of interest, how he was described, was going to be released because the evidence didn't add up to him being the shooter. And we don't know specifically what convinced the Attorney General, Peter Nerona, that he was not guilty of these charges, or they couldn't proceed with the prosecution. But in any event, he was released. So all of us now, and the people of Providence and the people associated with Brown University, are all on edge again, because what does this mean? Well, this means that the real shooter is still out there. And what must the police and the FBI and the ATF and all the state police, what must they do now? Well, they need to do one of the hardest things in the investigation, police investigation, and that is to start all over. But that's what is necessary. I have been in major investigations where we went in the wrong direction, and we really were convinced that that direction was correct right from the beginning, as was in this case. However, it takes a tremendous amount of forethought and experience to admit that you perhaps are wrong and you had the wrong person. So that's where the Providence Police and Providence Police Chief Oscar Perez, that's where they're at right now. And the college community and the whole Rhode Island community and the whole nation, for that matter, is now on edge again, because this shooter, this active shooter who went into this classroom at Brown University and shot it up, he's still out there. And I'm sure the students are going to be on edge for a while. So officials said Sunday night that they would release a person of interest they had detained earlier. They did not identify any other suspects. So after nearly 30 hours after a deadly shooting at Brown University, this is according to the New York Times, the authorities in Rhode Island said Sunday night that they were still searching for the gunman and that they would release a person of interest who had been detained earlier. At least 2 students were killed, as we know, when a person entered a lecture hall and started shooting with a rifle on Saturday afternoon. Another 9 students were wounded, with 1 in critical condition at a hospital. The authorities said that they had a person of interest in custody Sunday morning, but the investigation, which also involves the FBI, took a turn when top Rhode Island officials announced at 11 p.m., that was last night, that he had been released. Colonel Oscar Perez, the Providence police chief, said at a news conference on Sunday night that investigators did not find enough evidence to charge that person in connection with the attack, and that investigators are again searching for a person seen walking rapidly, which you see up on the screen, a still from that video, in a video released by authorities. When he was asked at a news conference whether the authorities believe the attacker is still in Providence, Mayor Brett Smiley said officials have no way of knowing. Attorney General Peter Nerona of Rhode Island said there was a lack of video footage from the campus. There just weren't a lot of cameras in that Brown building, Mr. Nerona said. We know that the attack occurred 4 p.m. on Saturday during a final exam review for principles of economics class. The victims, we know, 7 of the 9 students who were injured are taken to a hospital. Were in stable condition as of Sunday morning. 1 remained in critical condition. The resilience that these survivors showed and shared with me is frankly pretty overwhelming," said Mayor Brett Smiley of Providence, who visited victims and their families. So, again, one of the most difficult things to do for law enforcement is to admit that the person that they had in custody, who they thought potentially could be the shooter, and they described this person as a person of interest, now must be released, because whatever evidence they had that potentially cleared him, perhaps digital evidence, perhaps he had an airtight alibi that he wasn't at that location at that time. The police are not letting on what information they had that released him. So, folks, hold on to your hats. Hold on to your loved ones. Hold on to your thoughts. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Folks, if you're not subscribed, please like, subscribe, and share, and make lots of comments. That will help our algorithm and help our show grow. This is from ABC News, a report, of course, on the person of interest being released.
A stunning turn of events. The suspect still at large as authorities in Rhode Island admit they are releasing the person of interest in the horrific mass shooting at Brown University, which left 2 dead and 9 injured.
Sometimes you head in one direction and then you have to regroup and go in another. And that's exactly what has happened over the last 24 hours or so.
In the early hours of Sunday morning, the FBI and local law enforcement announced they had detained a person of interest at this Hampton Inn about 20 miles away from campus.
I see all the cop cars and FBI marshals down in the lobby, and I'm like, this isn't right.
But now authorities say after examining the evidence further, the investigation has shifted directions.
I think it's fair to say that there is no basis to consider him a person of interest. So that's why he's being released.
Still, authorities say this video does show a person they are looking for and are asking the public to scour their own photos and videos from the scene.
There just weren't a lot of cameras in that Brown building. We're not holding back video that we think would be useful.
The chaos unfolding during final exams just after 4 p.m. Saturday, when alerts of an active shooter on the Ivy League campus first went out.
2 victims, 1 shot in the back, 1 shot in the shoulder.
Students barricading themselves inside classrooms, hiding underneath desks, crouched in fear. This heart-pounding video showing the moments police officers entered a room where a number of students were sheltering in place.
Providence police!
Hands up, hands! Obviously, there's something going on. We're here to help you. Just listen to what we have to say, okay? All right, breathe. Anybody hurt?
Police say the gunman fired more than 40 rounds from a 9mm handgun inside a classroom.
I heard the gunshots right around the corner, and then looking out the window, I could just I saw the victims' bodies, and it was really frightening.
Joseph Aduro, who is graduating this month, was leading a study group of about 60 students inside a lecture hall when the shooter walked in.
Right after he mumbled whatever he said, that he just started shooting right away. There was no hesitation.
When you made eye contact with him, what did your mind tell you in terms of what was happening in that moment?
Immediately when I saw him, I saw a gun. The gun was so big and long that I genuinely thought okay, this is the end of the road for me. So I texted my entire family. I said, I love you all. I love you all. There's an active shooter. Please pray. And then I texted my parents, oh my goodness, he's in the room. God, I'm so scared.
Oduro says he held on to one student who was shot twice in her leg, comforting her.
I gave her my hand to squeeze it as hard as she could. I said, put all your pain on me because I could take it.
She was squeezing your hand.
Yeah.
And Oduro tells me he actually helped carry that student to a police car so she could be rushed to a hospital. Brown University has canceled all remaining classes and finals for the semester, and now the manhunt for a suspect is back on.
So, again, the person of interest who was in custody now has been released by the Providence Police, according to Colonel Oscar Perez and Attorney General Peter Nerona. They didn't have enough to charge this person. They may very well have had evidence that showed that he couldn't have been the shooter. For example, digital evidence or cell phone evidence, GPS evidence that would have put him at a different location. And I don't know that for sure. I'm suggesting that may have occurred. So what does that do for this investigation? As I said earlier on, what this means is that they have to start all over. Yeah. And, when they talk about there was not a lot of video in the lecture hall where the shooting took place, somewhere, though, they have that video, and I put the still from the video up on the screen, and they can follow that along, and what they must do is what's called a canvas, and I'm sure they've already done this. Start from this location then that you see in this photo and follow this person in this video who's dressed all in black and see where he went and see if you can pick him up, see if you can find him going into a car. It is a very difficult process, very tedious, but it must be done. And that's where authorities are. That's where the investigation is right now. So for more than 24 hours, the man of interest remained in custody. He was questioned by detectives as the world watched. The narrative seemed set, but behind the scenes, the case that had appeared so solid began to crumble. The evidence collected at the hotel, the background checks, the digital forensics, it wasn't adding up. Late Sunday night, in a hastily called press conference that stunned the public, Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nerona dropped a bombshell. I've been around long enough to know that sometimes you head in one direction and then you have to regroup and go in another, he stated. While some degree of evidence had pointed to the individual who had been taken into custody, that evidence needed to be corroborated and confirmed. The evidence now points in a different direction. His next words sent a shockwave through the community. So what that means is that this person of interest needs to be released. The man who had been the sole focus of the Brown University shooting investigation was free to go. He was no longer considered a person of interest. The announcement was a dramatic setback for the investigation. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley acknowledged that the decision would likely cause fresh anxiety for the community. Attorney General Nerona put it even more bluntly, we have a murderer out there. So what happened? How did the primary suspect just walk free? Police Chief Oscar Perez defended the initial detention, stating, we followed on a lead, and we followed on a specific lead. That's how investigations work. It's not a mistake. This points to a crucial part of the justice system. There's a huge difference between having enough evidence to detain someone and having enough to actually charge them with a crime. An arrest can happen based on a probable cause, which is a reasonable belief someone might have committed a crime, but to prosecute, you need proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Clearly, whatever evidence pointed to the man from Wisconsin was either disproven or just wasn't enough. So was this a mistake? Look, I say all the time on this show that investigation is equal parts art and equal parts science. And you put the art and the science of investigation together, and you have a powerful tool to prove someone's involvement in a crime and developing probable cause, and then putting the evidence together and see if you can develop a case against this person. Clearly, they had the wrong person. And was that a mistake? Well, you could call it what you want. Does this happen often in investigations? Yes, it happens all the time. And the investigators and the police personnel and the FBI and the ATF and the state police, they have to put their best investigative minds together and guess what? Start all over. It's one of the hardest things to do. Cookie Monster 179, this is such a bad look, shows such incompetence. I don't agree with you, Cookie Monster. You can think that if you like, but it happens. It happens. And they were pointed in the direction of this person. They followed up to that hotel in Coventry. They recovered 2 firearms. There's a very good possibility perhaps that's one of the things that may have cleared him. Perhaps they did a ballistics check against the firearms he had, and they weren't the guns. But they still haven't found the rifle. But for some reason, they felt that this was not the guy. And so they did what law enforcement should do. If it's not the guy, if you don't have you let him go. You can't hold someone who's innocent for forever. You know, you have to let him go. But what does this do for the community, for the Brown University community? And obviously they're dejected because they felt that they had the right person, that they had the shooter. And the community was at least relieved in that. Even though very much upset, they were relieved that the shooter was, that they felt that the shooter at one point was in custody. And now, when they know he's not, very disconcerting, very tough to face that. And this was from a press conference last night from the mayor of Providence.
The rationale for that, but we want to inform the community that that individual will shortly be released from Providence Police. We know that this is likely to cause fresh anxiety for our community. And we want to reiterate what we said earlier, which remains true, which is ever since the initial call, now a day and a half ago, we have not received any credible or specific threats to the Providence community. And so the status of safety in our community remains unchanged. And we believe that you remain safe in our community, though we will continue to have an enhanced police presence throughout the city and on the Brown campus. We are once again encouraging anyone who thinks that they might have relevant information to assist with our ongoing investigation to please provide it. These are the same resources that were asked earlier, but to share them once again. You can upload video or photos to the special FBI website created for this incident, which is fbi.gov/Brown University shooting. That's fbi.gov/Brown University shooting, or call the Providence Police non-emergency number of 401-272-3121. Our investigation into this horrific act remains ongoing. It has been ongoing. And I know there's been some frustration from members of the community and others about the language that we've been using about the person of interest and such, and that speaks to directly the fact that this investigation was and continues ongoing, and we will continue to endeavor to not confirm any information that is not yet confirmable. And that is how we can best be transparent with all the members of our community to share the best information that we have.
You know, someone is asking in the chat is, how did they come upon this person of interest who was reported to be a man named Benjamin Erickson, who was a U.S. Army veteran, was from Wisconsin, apparently had an apartment in Washington, D.C. Someone perhaps gave a tip, and that's what was reported to the FBI. And the FBI followed up, and they were able to ping his cell phone. So perhaps this individual not only gave the tip, but knew this person of interest, Benjamin Erickson. And when the FBI pinged his cell phone, they found out that he was staying at a hotel in Coventry. And they went there at 4 a.m. in the morning, and they took him into custody and recovered 2 guns. And since that 0400, 4 a.m., taken Benjamin Erickson into custody, they were busy doing a follow-up investigation on who he was, where had he been, and they, based on their follow-up investigation, they determined that they don't believe he's the guy. So they did something that is done by law enforcement all over this nation. When you find out you were basically pursuing leads that did not add up, they let him go, and they will be starting the investigation all over. Tough to do. One of the toughest things to do in investigation, but it's necessary, and that's where they're at right now. So what will happen during this investigation? Will they find this shooter? And I'm still very confident that with all the resources being applied to this, the FBI, the ATF, Providence Police, the Rhode Island State Police, I'm confident that they will find this shooter. They just got to dig in, double down, and work even harder. And I believe that's what they're going to do. Go back to the mayor.
I'd like to invite the governor to say a few words, and then we'll hear from the attorney general specifically with regard to the individual.
Mayor, thanks. So our position stays the same. The safety of the people in the state is a top priority. The response, an all-in response from the state relative to any of the issues that impact the Brown University or the people who are impacted by this act of violence. And I will continue to tell you that our colonel, we will be here shortly, and we will continue to have full amount of effort from the state side and the state police. And in addition to that, I just got off the phone with the mayor, with Director Kash Patel, with the FBI, and he also, because I wanted to make sure that he was fully aware of this press event, and he was, and he also committed to continue to bring out the resources of the federal government into this case. So right now, it's about the safety of the people that live in the state, that is in the Providence area. The state of Rhode Island will continue to provide all our resources to support the city, the mayor, as well as Brown University and the community at large in the area of Brown University. In addition to that, making sure that we keeping the people safe in the state of Rhode Island. Yeah. General.
Thank you, Mayor, Governor. So, I want to share with the people of the state of Rhode Island what this investigation looks like, where we are today, where I anticipate it moving forward. So last night, I wish you could have been with me in the command post where there were literally dozens of Providence police officers working to develop leads in this very difficult case. Difficult, obviously, because of the tragedy that occurred on the campus, but also difficult in terms of developing evidence. That work continues, and it will continue tomorrow. Our prosecutors were there, 6 in total. Our victim services folks were at the hospital. But this is what these investigations look like. I've been around long enough to know that sometimes you head in one direction and then you have to regroup and go in another. And that's exactly what has happened over the last 24 hours or so. Collectively, the team developed leads in a number of areas. One was chased to ground. It led to us detaining a person of interest. And so those words and how we choose those words when we're talking about an investigation matter. And what it means here is that certainly there was some degree of evidence that pointed to this individual, but that evidence needed to be corroborated and confirmed. And over the last 24 hours, leading into just very, very recently, that evidence now points in a different direction. So what that means is that this person of interest needs to be and should be released. I think what is really unfortunate that this person's name was leaked to the public. It's hard to put that back in the bottle, okay? So we're going to proceed very carefully here. There is too much at stake for the victims of this horrific crime and their families to take chances with respect to this investigation. What I anticipate seeing going forward is is that our team of prosecutors will be working with the Providence Police Department as the principal leads in this investigation. We will have our resources amplified by the state police, by the FBI, by the ATF, by the DEA, by the Marshal Service, and others as we develop leads and move towards justice in this case. But this could happen very quickly, but it could take some time. And so I'm going to ask the public to be patient with us as we continue to work through the facts in this case. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to my friend Oscar Perez. I've known a long time, worked a lot of cases with Chief Perez. He's terrific. He's leading a great team here. Again, I wish you could have seen the work the other night. We have not yet solved this case, but I'm confident we're going to.
You know, that's the Attorney General Nerona, and Oscar Perez is the Colonel of the Providence Police, the Chief of Police he's known as. And I will reiterate that one of the hardest things to do as an investigative body is to admit that you have the wrong guy, and they let him go. And now they must start all over. Very, very difficult and hugely disappointing to the elected officials, to the community, to Brown University. But you can't hold someone that didn't do it, you know? And while you're holding someone that didn't do it and focusing your resources and your talent and all of your focus on that person, the person who is the shooter is out there and perhaps getting away. So all the rules of investigation still apply, and especially to the community. If you see something, say something. Call the police, let them know. This is going to be Oscar Perez, the Chief of Police of the Providence Police Department.
To do that, and I'm confident we're going to do that in the very near future. So, Chief Perez.
Thank you, General. Yeah, good evening. We're here again today, obviously, I'm going to reiterate what the General just stated, as well as the Mayor. This person of interest will be released. And I want to make sure that we all understand that this was a very complex investigation, and it still is. So in the sense, we followed on a lead, and we followed on this specific lead, but we were able to examine every single evidence that led us to this individual. And at that point, that's how investigations work. Investigations will tell us whether something is valid or not, whether something needs to be ruled out. It's not a mistake. It's just how investigations work. And our responsibility is to make sure that we conduct the proper investigations. When I saw you all earlier today, I'm very proud of the detective work that they do. Detectives that work throughout the night, as the General stated, we're here last night, making sure that we lift every rock, that we investigate everything we needed to investigate, because we're not in the business of putting people in jail that don't deserve to be. And so at this point, we'll continue to follow on every lead that comes our way. Our federal partners are on board. We'll be meeting again tomorrow with them and continue to do the work that we need to do to bring this person who's responsible to justice. And I'm proud to say that in the morning, we'll be reuniting with the detectives. So the detectives worked all night. They're still working as we speak. And we'll continue our investigations.
So you can hear the officials, the police, the Attorney General, the Mayor. Everyone is quite nervous about this case because they had thought that they had the perpetrator in custody. They called him a person of interest. And to their credit, when they discovered they did not, they released him. And at this point, they have to start all over. And that is just a fact of life. And they're sort of hanging their hat on this, the still you see up on the screen that was taken from a video. They're hanging their hat on that in regards to they believe that that is the shooter. But as you can see, there is no picture of his face. So we just have a male dressed all in black, walking briskly away from the scene. We don't see him carrying anything. So that is who they think the shooter is. But they could be wrong with that also. And what they must do is an exhaustive search of all cameras along the route and in and out of the lecture hall where the shooting was taken. And they must do that. And even though it takes so much time, there are talented investigators that do that for a living. And that's what they must do, because right now, the shooter is still out there and the community is still very nervous. Brown students, Brown University, and we need closure. This is from CNN.
Said about here was that the Attorney General, Peter Nerona, was asked what led them to eliminate that person of interest as a possible suspect. He said he would not get into that. So those are questions that are at least publicly not being answered right now. In addition, in this news conference last night, they talked about the one serious piece of evidence that they've been able to release to the public, and that is the surveillance video showing what they believe is the suspect now walking around a corner here in this neighborhood. It's a short piece of video. You see, it's been out there. You see him walking around this corner, and you don't get a very good look at him. Take a listen to what the police chief, Oscar Perez, said about that video and whether that's the person they're looking for, and then what the Attorney General, Peter Nerona, said, almost interrupting him at that point in the news conference last night. Take a listen to this.
What we saw in the video is the person we're looking for, correct?
I would describe that person as a person of interest. So there are a lot of unknowns in this case, and that's one unknown.
So that is one unknown. And in another kind of extraordinary development, the mayor, Brent Smiley, said that they are searching for additional video evidence, that they need the public's help with that, and that the videos that the video evidence, the video surveillance that was actually in this building during the shooting has been examined, and that they have no additional actionable information from that video. He's essentially saying that the video evidence that they've seen from inside the building during the shooting occurred. I mean, he didn't use the word useless, but they're not getting very much information from whatever video that is, John. So they need the public's help now in finding more video of the suspect and of maybe his movements after the shooting there.
You know what they're talking about also, and this is where the help of the public is necessary, is checking cameras that people have on their house, Ring cameras. And they should really broadcast to the public that we need your video. Check your video. See what you have. See if you have any video of this person who is seen dressed all in black, who they're pretty sure that they believe this is the shooter, but he's not identified. So I don't want to get so redundant, but I think it's necessary. If you see something, say something. If you have video, check it. If you think the video is useful, even if you don't think it's useful, send it to the FBI. Send it to the special website that they have. And that could be the lead that they need to identify, apprehend, and arrest this individual and charge him for this heinous act of shooting up Brown University.
Asking for the public's help.
About the investigation so far.
This is what these investigations look like. I've been around long enough to know that sometimes you head in one direction and then you have to regroup and go in another. And that's exactly what has happened over the last 24 hours or so. Collectively, the team developed leads in a number of areas. One was chased to ground. It led to us detaining a person of interest. And so those words and how we choose those words when we're talking about an investigation matter. And what it means here is that certainly there was some degree of evidence that pointed to this individual, but that evidence needed to be corroborated and confirmed. And over the last 24 hours, leading into just very, very recently, that evidence now points in a different direction. So what that means is that this person of interest it should be released.
Well, he was released. And that is a credit to the investigators that they're not holding someone who's innocent, and instead they release this person. And then the toughest thing to do, and I reiterate this again and again and again, is to start all over, to admit that you were, use the expression, barking up the wrong tree, and now you need to start all over. And now a word from our sponsor. FanDuel's got an offer you don't want to miss this NFL season. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5, and if it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines, whatever your style. FanDuel has you covered. The NFL season is here. The only question is, are you ready to play? You must be 21 years or older and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbookfanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text HOPE New York in New York. Folks, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, share, and make lots of comments. And if you want to help Police Off the Cuff financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. We have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. You can become part of the Police Off the Cuff YouTube family. This is from Fox News.
Look, they're at Brown University this morning. As we continue to bring you this breaking news, as I just shared here, we are learning a person of interest detained after this shooting that killed 2 students and injured 9 now will be released after law enforcement authorities determined there was no basis to keep the individual in custody. Again, the release of this person of interest leaves law enforcement without any known suspect at this time. To discuss further, I want to bring in Scott Duffy to join us here on the show, retired FBI agent. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here this morning. We appreciate it.
Yes, good morning, Christy.
Well, let's start off with this breaking news. Now that this person is going to be released and there's still no leads here as of right now, where does all of this go from here? What does this mean for the investigation?
Yeah, so this goes back to ground zero. So a person of interest, a suspect, whatever you want to call this individual, it was something that law enforcement was drawn to. There was enough to be able to bring them, that is law enforcement, to the footsteps of this individual's what is believed to be a hotel room. It is from there that you have to develop the evidence to connect whatever brought law enforcement to this person in the first place to the scene of the crime, whether it be the weapon, particular clothing that would fit the description depicted on the surveillance video, an interview and subsequent confession. Those things obviously were missing. Law enforcement did not have enough probable cause to hold this individual anymore, and so with subsequent brings law enforcement back to ground zero. This is a homicide investigation. It is a whodunit, and they are scouring everything, not only the evidence that was collected at the scene, but all the digital forensic evidence that still is yet to be completed.
And I want to go off of that, Scott. I'm showing some of that surveillance video on our screen here because officials are, again, pledging to redouble their efforts in this investigation. And they said they're going to be canvassing for video surveillance that could help pinpoint the killer's identity. How much of a role is this really going to play here?
As you can see with that video, he's walking with a sense of purpose. He's walking quite briskly, as if he's trying to get away from something. Not that that in itself is saying he's the shooter, but it's a good indication that something is awry here in the way that he's moving as quickly as he is moving.
Or what can they really determine from this video in terms of finding this person?
Yeah, so just from that video that we're watching now, yes, you can gather pieces of information, but you want additional information. So ring cameras or additional business, CCTV cameras to be able to uncover this face, right? Just as we saw in the Luigi Mangione, it was covered. And then as law enforcement continued to scour the city with regards to where was this individual before, during, and after, they were able to find additional surveillance video that was very telling, not only of the individual's face, but a false ID that was provided. So that's what they'll be doing here in lieu of something, a tip or something else that brings law enforcement to yet another doorstep of an individual that they can take into custody. So it is painstaking. It is not something you can grab the video and then all of a sudden have something appear. It takes analysts and agents and investigators real time where they're having to go through so they don't miss anything, where this individual might have brought down the mask or something else, getting into a vehicle, going through LPR's license plate readers in and out of the city to try to find someone that they can put the evidence that is collected at the scene connected with this individual so they can make an arrest.
I'm giving a live look here at Brown University this morning. So despite this enhanced police presence that we do know now at Brown, officials are not recommending another shelter-in-place order like the one that followed after the shooting. When it comes to making those decisions, those safety calls, what goes through the minds of law enforcement officials at the university when it comes to keeping these students safe when there still is not a suspect in custody?
Yeah, Christy, law enforcement probably has some idea of what took place or why, or something to give them an indication as to the type of person that they're looking for. So, for example, as we have seen, unfortunately, in the United States and around the world, these mass shooters, these active shooters, they are over relatively quick in the sense that an individual comes to the scene with a variety of motives, revenge, etc., and opens fire, but they don't have an exit plan. And so we have seen time and time again where an individual is quickly taken into custody or is neutralized either through a law enforcement threat or taken their own life. Here we have an instance where it seems like the video that you had played just a few minutes ago, this individual is walking away casually, not running away. And look.
Well, he is walking away casually, but he's walking briskly, as if he's walking with a purpose, as if to get away from something. So I would disagree with this FBI agent in that. He is walking briskly, not running, because again, he doesn't want to draw too much attention to himself. But it seems as though law enforcement is pretty confident that this is the shooter in this video that you see, who is walking briskly. I would describe that as briskly.
Looking at the right hand being in the pocket, this individual seems to have a plan, an exit, an escape plan. And so law enforcement now has to go back and look at the relationships, the connections, not only with the decedents, with who had access. And so I imagine they have some clues that are helping them narrow that pool of individuals who could have done this, and be able to start looking at individuals that they may suspect of doing this, and then be able to connect the dots. That is digital forensics as well as the evidence left at the scene.
You know, one of the things that the FBI has that they really don't like to advertise too much, for a very good reason, it's called geofencing. And they're able to pull up all electronic devices being used in a very specific area, for example, this lecture hall, at the time of the shooting, and shortly give a window, say, 10, 15 minutes. And in that way, they could possibly identify the perpetrator. Even perpetrators, we've learned in several cases that we've followed on this channel, can't resist bringing their phone to locations where they commit these crimes. So these tools that law enforcement has may come through and help identify the perpetrator in this case. The other thing that this FBI agent spoke about was Scott Duffy, that's his name, behavioral analysis. that's what he was referring in so many words. The FBI has a behavioral analysis unit where they can write up a profile of who this shooter is. And the most important thing, and I stress it all the time, someone knows this shooter. This shooter may brag to his friends, to his acquaintances about what he did, even post it on social media. That is what law enforcement has to be working double time to make sure that they have agents, officers, investigators in every possible place. And that includes the digital world, online, and the importance of the community and the community seeing something and saying something. I know I'm getting redundant with that, but it is so important. That's how many of these cases get closed. They have a tips line. People call in tips, and that is how this case is going to get solved. So, folks, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. As this case moves forward, I'm pretty sure they will make an arrest in this case. I can't guarantee it. I would never do that. But the resources that are going to be applied to this case will come up with a perpetrator in this case. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone. God bless.
One episode just ain't enough.